A charter. A charter is a document for approval. It is a document that Cecil John Rhodes was supposed to get so that he could have a permission to occupy Zimbabwe on behalf of the British. So this document, he was granted it by the British Prime Minister Lord Salisbury and the British Queen Victoria. After being granted this charter, Rhodes came back to South Africa. When he came back to South Africa, he formed a company which was supposed to be responsible for undertaking the occupation of Zimbabwe. This company was known as the BSAC. The BSAC, which means British South African Company. British South African Company. Rhodes had to advertise in the newspapers, telling people who were interested in becoming members of the BSAC. He advertised in the newspapers, and 2,000 people applied for being members of the BSAC, but he only wanted 200. Only 200 people were wanted so that they could become members of the BSAC. These members, they were supposed to be of different professions. They were supposed to be of different professions. For example, number one, they were supposed to be teachers. Teachers were included in this group of the BSAC. We also discovered that they were also carpenters who were going to be responsible for doing several duties in Zimbabwe of carpentry. We have also those who were supposed to be traders who were going to trade with the local people. Traders were also included in this group. There were also farmers. These farmers were going to be responsible for practice in agriculture. They were supposed to be responsible for cultivating lands when they arrived in Zimbabwe. Rhodes also wanted miners. They were supposed to mine. They were supposed to search and locate for minerals in Zimbabwe. So miners were also included in this group of the British South African Company. Rhodes also wanted bankers. They were going to be responsible for banking activities when they arrived in Zimbabwe. Rhodes also wanted sailors who were also going to take an active part upon arrival in Zimbabwe. So these were different professions that Cecil John Rhodes wanted from the people who were going to become members of the British South African Company. These members, they were supposed to be able to speak English or Afrikaans. So they were supposed to be in a position to communicate in English or Afrikaans. And they were also supposed to be below the age of 30. They were supposed to be below the age of 30. So when he recruited these members of the British South African Company, Rhodes went on to choose the leaders of the BSAC Company. These leaders included Father Frank Johnson. He was the leader of the BSAC. Father Frank Johnson. He was the leader of the BSAC. The police, it was in the hands of Colonel Penfeather. He was the leader, he was responsible for the police of the BSAC. Colonel Penfeather. Father Frank Johnson, he was assisted by Henny, he was assisted by Henny and Boro. These were the assistants of Father Frank Johnson, Henny and Boro. The security of the BSAC, it was in the hands of Solusi. He was responsible for the security of the BSAC. This Solusi used to come to Zimbabwe. He was a hunter. He used to come to Lobengola's kingdom, and he knew much about Lobengola's kingdom. He was responsible for the security of the BSAC. As the BSAC came to Zimbabwe, they also came with Khama of the Ngwato. Khama of the Ngwato. He was a chief in Bechuanaland. He was a chief in Bechuanaland. He was promised to be given land upon arrival in Zimbabwe. Upon arrival in Zimbabwe. Khama of the Ngwato. The BSAC, as they came to Zimbabwe, we discover that they were promised to be given 15 gold claims upon arrival in Zimbabwe. They were also promised to be given 3,000 hectares of land. So that is what they were promised, 15 gold claims and 3,000 hectares of what? Of land. The BSAC, now that we now have the leadership, now that we now have what they were promised, they now undertook this occupation of Zimbabwe. They moved a distance of 12 miles a day. They moved a distance of 12 miles a day. And they came using ox-drawn wagons. Ox-drawn wagons. So they arrived at Bedbridge and they named it Fort Tuli. Fort Tuli. It was established at Bedbridge. A fort is a protected settlement. This now meant that the whites were now responsible for this area which they referred to as Fort Tuli, a protected settlement. They moved, they continued with their journey, and eventually they arrived in Masvingo. When they arrived in Masvingo, they named it Fort Victoria. They named it Fort Victoria. Why Fort Victoria? It was because they were honoring the British Queen who had given Cecil John Rose a charter. When the whites arrived in Masvingo, we discovered that they thought that they were going to find minerals in abundance. They began searching everywhere, searching everywhere. Why? It is because as they moved from South Africa, as they came to Zimbabwe, they were promised 15 gold claims. So they thought that upon arrival in Zimbabwe, these minerals were going to be found in abundance. But this was not the case. So what happened? They proceeded with their journey. They eventually arrived in Chivu. And they named it Fort Charter. Why Fort Charter? It was because of the charter that Cecil John Rose was granted, was given by the British Queen, by the British Prime Minister, Lord Salisbury. So they arrived in Chivu and they named it Fort Charter. And they continued with their journey. Eventually, they arrived in Harare. They arrived in Harare and they named it Fort Salisbury. Why Fort Salisbury? It is because they were honoring the British Prime Minister, Lord Salisbury, like what previously said, who granted CJR, who granted Cecil John Rhodes a charter to occupy Zimbabwe on behalf of what? Of Britain. So we see them naming it Fort Salisbury. So when they were in Harare, on 12 September 1890, they raised their Union Jack. They raised their flag and they began singing their national anthem. Singing their national anthem marked the beginning of the occupation of Zimbabwe. It now meant that the British, the whites, the settlers, they were now the overall rulers of Zimbabwe. This is why they sang their national anthem on the 12th of September 1890.